as an individual or a designer, we all come across contents each and every day. For example, on our social media and magazines, newspapers, everywhere we see some or other content every day. So today we are going to find out who are the actual heroes behind it, who writes the content, and who are the ones who curate these things. So for that, today we have my good friend Poovi Modi, who is an amazing human being as well as a great content writer. So we'll get back to Poovi Modi.
What's up?
Yeah, this is not how it is done.
Hello, Rajat.
Hello Modi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So Poovi Modi, tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm an architect. I've practiced for 2 years since graduating, and last year I made the switch to full-time content writing. So I've been writing for a while now, but last year was when I officially made the jump to architectural writing.
Tell us about your journey from school to architecture, and why did you made a jump in journalism?
Okay. So during school also I was very fond of theatre and skits, and I've realized that I liked it because it's a good way to express yourself. And one thing I liked about plays is there's a screenplay, so everything is pretty organized and it's listed down in order. It's the same thing with writing, where you have like an intro, you have a body, and you have an ending, a conclusion. So everything has an intent. So I guess that interest in theatre carried forward to writing and speaking. And during college and during school, I found that I want to pursue this a little bit more professionally. So then in college, I chose architecture, and with architecture comes theatre.
So what made you choose architecture? You were from math background. You could have chosen engineering, but what made you choose? What made you choose architecture? Is it design or something you wanted to explore? Very creative.
Quite frankly, I wasn't very keen on architecture in specific. I just knew it was a nice field to do, and I didn't have a very strong reasoning. I just knew that I did math in 11th and 12th, and then thereafter I was interested in design and writing. So I was like, let's try doing architecture.
Was there any family background influence on you?
Yes.
Your dad was is an architect. So that pushed you something?
Drove my decision, and I would say it's one of the deciding factors where I thought since I could get his guidance throughout my education and afterwards in practice, I would pick architecture. So it was a no-brainer. It was either architecture, it was mass communication. Two options.
And you said that you were into theatres, and then you that influenced you to jump into journalism. Then why specifically you chose architecture? You could have started your journey in journalism before doing architecture, or without doing architecture.
Yeah, I could have done mass communication. That was my alternate option. But architecture was definitely my first interest and is still my first love. So I thought, architecture is the sort of field where I knew this before getting into the course, that once you get in, there are a lot of things you can do. So I guess from the beginning, I knew I was never going to be a practicing site architect. I always wanted to do something different. But I thought I'd get into the field to understand it better. You don't know the field till you get into it, like in anything.
So you like to express more?
I think so.
Then why didn't you continue with your theatre? You could have chose that as a career option.
I could have, but again, like I said, architecture has always been my first love and will continue to be. So theatre was a thing that happened alongside, but definitely architecture was my priority.
So how does theatre and journalism correlate? What are the similarities you feel?
There's no direct correlation. They're very different fields. But one binding factor I think is both are a way of storytelling. So in journalism or design writing, you have an intent, you have an audience, and you have a specific emotion or content that you want to convey in a certain way. Yeah. So if it's just architectural writing, it has to be unbiased. So you're stating facts and figures, but you're making it easy to understand for the reader. And if it's journalism, then it might be opinionated. So that's a different style of writing altogether. In theatre, there's again a similar intent. A play has an intent, everything has a moral to the story, right? Like when we were kids, we used to read stories and everything had a moral. So it's similar with theatre, where there's a specific purpose why we're doing this play. So that's the only correlation. There's an intent behind every piece.
So were you extrovert from the beginning, or after joining the theatre, everything changed?
I think so. I was very timid in school, which is why I thought acting would help me break out of my shell. I still am, I'm not very extroverted, but I found writing and theatre is a great way to put your feelings out on paper and makes you more easier.
What influenced you to join theatre? How it was different from your regular curriculum? Like introvert usually don't get along all these activities.
Actually, they do. If you're introverted, you tend to do more things that try to break you out of your
Theatre is
shell.
something very social and extrovert activity.
That's why. So the thing with theatre is, theatre and writing in specific is, they give you a set of exercises to do. So it's not very impromptu. You learn to break out of your shell in certain steps. So for an introvert, that's like the goal. No one's going to put you on the spot and say, okay, talk about yourself. They'll give you activities to do, so you ease into it.
Yeah, I remember our time during one of the time when we did our skit.
Yeah.
Literally, we blew up the college space there.
That was nice. Like, yeah, actually, I believe like introverts actually tend to do more creative things and something bit out of the box when given chance. So even I had kind of theater experience, not a theater experience, but kind of skit experience. How do you differentiate your experiences in theater, architecture, and journalism? Like, though you didn't spend a lot of time in architecture and content writing, so what are your experiences throughout? Like, what are your biggest challenges in all the three fields?
In architecture, I think my challenge was that I didn't want to be a site architect. As a design architect also, I found I was more keen on the writing part than the designing part. And I'm better at describing design than actually doing it. So it wasn't really a challenge, it was more of a realization, which is why I switched. Theatre and architecture, for me, again, it was a mode of storytelling. That's the only similarity. Theatre for me was more of a realization thing that helped me understand that, you know, these things are possible in architecture also. So I guess that way it's related.
You know what I feel like journalism or content writing is basically something what we all architects have to do from the beginning. We write our concepts, stories, and like write about our designs. So like you might have also did your thesis journal research paper. So how journalism is like content writing on a project is different from your thesis research paper?
Oh, it's like vastly different. One thing is, you know, when you're a student and you're writing your thesis, you don't know how to write, like, professionally. So you kind of put what you think should be written. Mostly what people end up doing, what I ended up doing for my thesis dissertation is, I copied somebody else's dissertation. And I tried changing the language for it to fit my project.
We all did that thing, yeah.
Which is never a good idea. Because you're essentially copying someone else's style of writing and you're just changing things to make it yours. It doesn't give you that kick from the beginning that this is your content. And one more thing is, none of us knew paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is when you take a text and you change the words such that it doesn't match the original one. So you keep the essence of the text, but words are yours. I didn't know that. So I would literally like take what I liked from somebody, put it in mine, credit them, but it used to be their text. So that's not allowed.
I can relate with you. That is, even I did the same mistake. And I repeated that for 4 semesters, but no one actually told me we shouldn't do that. Later, when it was my thesis final research submission, then I got to know that at least there should be our essence in that. We can take inspiration from that and credit them, but
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I realized when I professionally started writing, that you can't take somebody else's content. I also learned that it's so important to credit the original author.
Yes, it is very important.
You know, because especially when they are credited, you should carry that credit forward. So many times when we are writing now professionally, we are not credited. Our name is not there because you might be writing for a client or you might be ghostwriting for a different purpose. So times where you are credited, that credit should be carried forward because it's not very common.
Tell me about ghostwriting. What is ghostwriting?
Ghostwriting is when your name is not there on a piece of art, on a piece of like writing, but you wrote it for a different person. So if I'm writing, suppose you're my client and you ask me to write an article for you, your name will be on the article, not mine. But it'll be my content based on your inputs.
So like you mean to say you won't be credited. What if, that is if you're working under an organization or something. What if you freelance in journalism?
Then you get credited. Then it depends on what kind of writing you're doing. Suppose you send your text to suppose an architectural portal, and that portal hires writers. So chances are if you're an employee with that portal, your name will come on the article. But again, if you're a guest writer, it might not come. Then you'll just be called guest writer. So it's very subjective where your name will come, where it won't. Crediting in writing is very subjective.
But like in my architecture academic time, I did a lot of case studies. So sometimes I feel like even I'm a journalist or a content writer. How does it differ from case studies differ from the like proper research paper or your content writing? Is it like something you generate out of your own, or you take inspiration from something like?
If you write it on your own, it's a blog.
Hmm.
It's not a case study or a research paper. If you write it with references and with facts and figures, then it's a research paper. And it's a case study, again, if you just infer. Case studies are not creative. Case studies are purely observational. So research papers are like a collection of case studies with your input also. These are the differences.
So for example, you are a freelancer in journalism and you get a project. So what will be your process? How do you process a...
Like for a client, like writing for a client. So you take pointers from them first before you start writing. From the very beginning, if you want to talk about like the fee you charge and all that, you tend to charge based on words. So if you're writing a 600 piece word, you're going to charge based on 600 into whatever is your fee. Secondly, you come to what your deliverables are. If they want a blog or if they want an authored piece or whatever, based on that you take pointers from them, from your client. And then you start writing the piece, you show them a draft, and then changes are based on what your equation with your client is. That's how you submit a piece.
So but recently a lot of platforms have come up, online platforms, which when you type a keyword, they generate an essay or something sort of thing. Do you think that is influencing your particular community of journalists or content writer? And if it does, how and what are the drawbacks and like positive outcomes of that?
SEO, search engine optimization words, are so that people find your writing more often. When you write a piece of article, you tend to put those words that are more commonly Googled or searched. The reason you do that is so when someone types that phrase that is very commonly searched on the internet, your article should show up.
But I'm talking about the whole thing. When you type some, for example, my younger siblings, they want an essay. What they do is they just go on Google and type some random keywords, whatever they want, like mandatory words, and AI automatically generates an essay for them. So, so how is that affecting your community and market?
Might not be, I don't know, technically accurate, because eventually you have to read the entire piece and see if it's okay. So if a bot is writing your paper versus if a person is writing your paper, there's going to be a human touch missing in what the bot is writing. The bot will literally just put what inputs you give and form a sentence out of it. But when you're writing a paper, you tend to realize 3 sentences while writing that 1 sentence.
Even I feel same, like there should be a human essence to anything what we do. That is true that a machine or an artificial intelligence can't
can't replicate that. Not yet, at least.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
But do you think digital media will transform the landscape of journalism in coming future?
It already has. I mean, if you talk about social media channels, everything now is centered around social media. We make content which is separate for different channels of social media. So you can imagine how different it is back from like the email marketing generation. Yeah, digital media is like a super accessible tool now for all clients. Architects make their portfolios on Instagram now. So, you know, digital media has fully transformed the way we look at content and writing completely.
So what are some of the like challenges which you have faced till now?
I mean, in the broad range of things, I guess content writing, you have to defer the language. Language is one thing that I took some time to understand. Grammar, language, tonality for different types of media. What you're writing on Instagram can't be the same language you're using on LinkedIn, can't be the same language you're using on a newsletter, can't be the same using on a blog. So that language changes across everything, even if your content is the same.
I agree with you. Like me being a digital creator, this impacts a lot in my community also. I am on different social media platforms. So like the audience differs on each platforms, and the like their demands and needs are different in each platform. So yeah. So what kind of audience you try to like cater in terms of Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and how effective is LinkedIn in terms of journalism? Yeah, I think all the social media platforms plays a major role in our audience, especially for the digital content creator. eh, Let it be artist or an architect or a content writer, anyone. So even I faced certain issues when I was like started my freelancing, but these platforms actually helped me to gain exposure in different audience. For example, you take this app which is for photographs, gram, Instagram. So that actually helped me to gain some international exposure, and Twitter and all these helped me to get into touch with some good collectors. So like that, I gained a lot of exposure in that thing. But how does you are like how do you network through these apps? You just, for example, LinkedIn is a job portal. So do you just apply for a job as they give you an ad, or how?
Yeah, I mean, the way LinkedIn works job wise is the same for everybody. Do you mean content wise or?
Content wise.
No, so that's a completely different story. So when we post content on different social media apps, we try to change the narrative for different platforms. So your photo posting app will have a different sort of content narrative, your job app will have a different narrative, because they're catering to different audiences. On your photo sharing app, you ideally have people maybe in their 20s, 30s who are looking for inspiration, who are looking for like a change of pace. That's why they come to that page to like learn more about that page. Nowadays people use that as a portfolio, so you change your narrative to that. LinkedIn is more of like a inspiration job searching thing, so the sort of narrative there would be catering to people looking to learn from them. Facebook, Twitter are more information based, so you will go less into like a casual tone, you will go more into an information based system. So it differs. Once you're in it, you will get to know the small differences between all of these platforms. But yeah, it's different for all.
Do you think like journalism or content writing should be given more importance in the educational curriculums? Because till date, like till today, I had this very vague picture of journalism is like just journalists just create, or they just take information from a certain source and they just paraphrase or put it in their own words. But do you think people need to like kids or the coming up generation needs to focus more on this?
I think so. I
And
actually.
what
Yeah.
role does educational institutes play in this? Even my college had this very minor segment which was called journalism, but I don't think we have reached up to that expectation level or something.
Probably not. I agree with you. In fact, before I started working as a writer, I myself had no idea that there were so many things involved in writing. I also used to think journalism and writing are the same thing. They're not. So, when you're in college, you try to understand the most from a subject, but this is a fact that you don't get like a complete, wholesome knowledge of the field while you're in college. But I genuinely feel like from a school level, writing, at least writing and content writing, should be a compulsion. It not only helps you put your thoughts, like articulate your thoughts properly, but it kind of helps you express yourself better, which helps you in other aspects of life also. So it's not just about like a career in content writing, it helps you clear your mind, and that works in every field, I feel like. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know about the nuances of content writing till I started working, but I would have liked it had it been introduced from a school level. Definitely.
So like while you said you did some crash course on journalism or a separate certification course. So what was the difference between that academic course, academic elective which was given to you as journalism, and now you're in your course?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I mean, while we're in college, we get a very like a basic understanding of what architectural journalism is, and we get a very bookish knowledge of it. That this is what it is, that is what it is, and it's only a semester, so I feel like that's not enough for you to understand unless you do your own study.
What do you mean by bookish?
I mean very theoretical and very like definition based. It doesn't give you a very clear idea that this is, while you're working in it, this is what to expect. It just gives you like a definitive answer. That's not enough to learn about it. It's just enough to write an exam about it.
While you were doing your journalism course, did you find any like gender ratio difference and any discrimination in your profession? Like, is it more gender specific or gender neutral?
I would say it's very neutral because writing is everybody's cup of tea. I do see a difference in like
Not everyone's cup of tea.
No, it is. That's what I'm saying. It is. That had it been introduced in a school level, everybody can articulate it in their own way. So I genuinely personally feel like writing is everybody's cup of tea. It's just not taught from the beginning. Some people have a knack for it to pick it up easier, but everyone can write, I feel like, and everyone should because it helps you form your thoughts better. But I do see a difference from like being a design architect to writing being a content architect, where most girls don't go to site as often as guys do. I know that like that's a very specific thing that I'm saying, but in my experience, I've not seen a lot of girls compared to guys. They're encouraged to go to site and they're encouraged to be with the laborers and work late hours. Girls are not encouraged to work late hours. They're actually encouraged to go home at a certain time. I understand it's a safety thing, but it also hinders with the profession because the profession is not going to care about your safety. But when it comes to content writing, it's everybody who wants to express themselves more than, you know, a designer or a site architect.
If you were given a chance to like set up a system where content writing is given an importance, will you take that opportunity? And if you did, then what were the changes you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I think I'd like to. Like the teaching part of content writing you're talking about?
Yeah.
I think I'd like to. I think I might be good at it because I'm passionate about it, so I might be able to transfer my knowledge.
But how do you plan to do that?
In a practical sense. So more exercises, more assignments, more skill building rather than theoretical. I don't think giving a presentation on content writing gives anything. Like there's no learning from it. You have to start doing it to learn.
And do you think just getting a basic idea in your college is enough to pursue journalism as your career, or?
It depends on your aptitude. Like I liked the idea of writing, which is why I picked it up in my career. College is enough to give you like an intro that this is what it is. It's not a very accurate intro, honestly, but it's enough to get you started, I think. This is if I'm thinking about it optimistically, otherwise, no, it's not enough.
And how does journalism affect, like, help in improving the public design?
It makes it more accessible because people who are not architects can read about it and understand. You know, they don't understand design drawings and they definitely don't understand working drawings. So if a non-architect were to read about a structure and then learn about it that way, then they can relate with that design more. So it's more about like neutralizing architecture for everyone, not just for architects. That's the main goal.
No, in general, I'm not talking about architecture. Let it be if you have a product. For example, you take this pen as a product. So I think product design and the experience here solves a lot more problems. How does your content will help? So according to my knowledge, I think it's only the part of marketing where it is like catering people to like show them this is the product. Just advertising and marketing. What else it serves?
It serves an educational use. The whole point of marketing is to educate a customer, potential customer, that this is a product that you need and here's why. So it's educational and those who are interested will end up purchasing it. So.
And what do you think? How much impact does advertising has on public?
Advertising is a completely different ball game. That is with a very promotional purpose. So it depends.
You think even content writing is also a promotional purpose?
No, it's not.
How?
It's purely educational, informative. If you're talking about advertising and writing for advertising, then that's promotional. Content writing is not.
Start. So do you have different styles for different product or categories in content writing? For example, architectural or a product.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
For sure. When you're doing an architectural text, you again try to keep it as generic as possible, and you try to keep it as you try to complicate it as little as possible. What ends up happening with architecture writing for the most part is you try to put too many adjectives and describe too many feelings that you don't let the reader form their own feelings. So if you make it as simple as possible, set the premise, start large scale, then go context-wise. So start where it is, what the intent is, then zoom into maybe city level, and then zoom into locality, and then zoom into typology. And then you talk about the physical appearance of the building, and then you zoom into interiors. So you literally have to imagine that you're looking at something from like a satellite view, and then you get as close as you can. So you start, that's the general structure of how you write. And while you're describing it, this is a mistake that I've also made multiple times, where don't describe it much. Just describe its basic stuff, describe how you would see it visually, and then let your audience form their opinion if they think it's beautiful or not. Like if you only go and say it's a beautiful building, there's little left to imagination. So
does using complicated words help?
it doesn't help anyone.
So if you were given a project, an architectural project, so how would you take it? Like, do all the writers have their own different styles?
Yes. Writers have their signature styles. I can't give you an example because I don't know of like any example that I can give you right now.
No, you can explain, like you can tell me how it differs, like two styles.
It all depends on the sort of person you are, what kind of writing you do. So if you are the kind of person who is optimistic by nature, your writing style tends to reflect that. And if you're a person who is very like cut and dry facts by nature, your writing style reflects that. Again, writing is very subjective, especially if you're describing something, you're writing a long form text. Short form, you can't show your personality much, but in long form, it's very evident who has written it. So in terms of tonality and in terms of maybe friendliness, how well you can explain it, it all depends on how well you understood it, that you've put it into words and explained. So you don't have to be a very good writer to write well. You just need to know how to explain things to people properly. So if you get that on point and you get your grammar on point, your text is sorted.
So till now, what was your worst experience
In writing,
in writing?
I would have to say, as silly as it sounds, social media captions are very difficult to write. Like, I prefer writing long form content. I think it's easier. Social media captions, you really have to become a different person when you're writing each thing. So you kind of have to like act like you're in a certain way and then write. So I'm still trying to understand the tonality difference in social media. That is very difficult. And that is mostly the ones where if you have a client, your client is going to suggest changes.
So what is a typical day in life of a content writer looks like? How much time they spend on writing?
On the system.
On the system.
24 hours. No. So a content writer's thing, it depends on what sort of content you're doing for that day. Suppose if you're writing a newsletter that day, your day might go in researching layouts of newsletter, design-wise. And then you'll think of what content you want to put. And then newsletters usually have something called a CTA, a call to action. So what kind of call to action you want to give? If you put too many buttons on your newsletter, your reader will get confused. You put too little, they'll get confused. You have to hit that sweet spot, the right amount of buttons, the easiest design to follow, such that they won't unsubscribe from you. So you have to keep very conscious that you shouldn't be annoying, shouldn't be irritating, and you shouldn't explain too much. No one's going to read so much. So your content also should be good visually and textually also.
So doing all this, you might need a team. Like, what is the structure of a team or an office in content writing?
You have one person setting the strategy, the general framework. You have one person doing the text, which is your content writer, one graphic designer to work with the content writer, and one person again to overview, just in general, like a fresh pair of eyes. So generally, all of these people should have each other's skills for the most part. Of course, something that a graphic designer does, obviously a content writer can't do. But you have to have an understanding internally that, this is the kind of graphic I'm trying to show with my text. Not everything has to be words, right? Sometimes your words can be a graphical symbol or something. Easier to understand, interpret, comprehend. So you have to have these main people covering the larger aspects, and that's about it in a content writer's office. Writing is like, honestly, the last part you do. Your framework and your graphics have to be good.
If a freshie like me wants to start writing content, then what do I have to do? Or you can say, like, when you were fresher, how did you start?
Yeah. I can tell you what I did. It might help you. While I was in college, I was interested in writing as it intrigued me. I didn't know if I was good at it or not. I had a blog on the side, but it wasn't professional or anything. It was just like a hobby of mine. And I read somewhere that journaling is good for the soul. So I was like, okay, let's try making it a profession. I don't know how it'll work. So in 2020, in the pandemic, I joined an architectural journalism workshop. I did not know what I was getting into. All I knew is I'll find out what this is about. And then I met a lot of people like me who are confused about the field, who don't know what writing is about, and they are here to learn more than learn about writing. They're here to learn what it is. And the person who was mentoring our workshop also had gone through the same thing. So it was such a relief for us that as architects, we were confused about what writing is, even though we were interested in it. Then in that writing workshop, we learnt about how social media plays a big impact on people and how our writing can influence them, on what is long form writing, what is short form writing. Just a general overview of everything. Again, not enough to learn, but enough to get more interested in learning. So the workshop was my first step into writing. After the workshop was done, I took my blog more seriously. I read more. I used to consciously read things on design portals. And I used to consciously read Instagram captions. Why are they saying what they're saying? What is a hashtag? What is an SEO? Why are people using this here and there? How often do you post? Even that's very important. And then last year, I made the official switch to content writing because I was honestly done with being an architect, like a design architect. And I wasn't very good at it. So I kind of needed to find something I was better at or something I would be willing to learn. I wasn't willing to learn how to be a better design architect. So I think that's one more thing that contributed. With writing, I was more interested and more enthusiastic to be wrong. So I was like, let's try. And then I just sent my blog as a portfolio. Usually people have writing portfolios where you put your story samples. If you've done an interview with someone, you put that. Any form of writing. It can be like a really good poem you've written. It can be a really good caption you wrote. Any form of writing that shows who you are as a writer and how well you can understand the assignment. So I gave that as a submission and I got through. And my actual learning started when I got the job. That's when I learned what a content writer's job is. I didn't even know what my job would be, but I was willing to explore.
So do you think is there a cultural and contextual paradigm in design journalism? Like there is a difference between regional content and national level content and international level content. And what I feel regional content is like kind of shadowed or it is not in the light. Why it is happening here?
It's probably not that it's not in the light. It's very much there. It's probably because our, I don't know if it's like a demographic thing or our market talks about the more popular journals more. But the other ones are definitely there and they are sustaining over the past so many years. So naturally they have a readership and they have some good content to talk about. But they're probably catering to an audience that doesn't talk about it much. So they're consuming that content. They're probably not maybe marketing or advertising it enough. So, you know, the main popular design journals that we read or we come across on a daily basis are curated such that we talk about it more. So that's another part of design writing where we write according to requirement and according to what we think the demographic will eat up more.
So don't you think like if we are trying to product pull or something like certain big brands, then we are leaving these regional level brands at their at the back only because they don't have enough investment to hire good content writers, and everything goes to the big brands and they'll be in the limelight forever. So am I right first of all about this thing? Because the small setups and regional level setups, they don't have enough to invest on content writing. Basically they go with small marketing strategies.
No, I don't think that's true. Regional level have regional level goals. So, you know, if they need to level up, then that's like a completely different ball game. Then that's a matter of funding and
I agree
readership.
Because recently I was working with one of the small scale industry which was supporting artists, traditional artists throughout, but the only thing is there's no media coverage and there's no one to advertise them and there was no one to write them. So for them, is there any push which content writing can give at a very affordable solution?
Yeah, I think so. I think more than content writing, if you're talking about regional artisans and giving them exposure, that happens more on social media rather than content writing.
That is the role of content writer.
Yeah, but it is happening on social media. So the fact that you know about it is clearly a way that you came across it. You might have come across it through another colleague, or you might have come across it through social media. So it's working because you got to know about it, and then you're talking about it here. So I'll go tell somebody else. So that's just how word of mouth or any sort of news gets distributed. But with regional content, over the past few years, maybe the past decade, they have been coming back. You know how like trends repeat, right?
Yeah.
So they are coming back to again promoting local artisans, importing less international stuff, doing more local stuff. And I feel like since the pandemic, it's been a lot more like being proud of what you own locally and promoting local businesses. Again, it's a trend. So you never know after a few years what we're going to be writing about. So if I feel like for a content writer, you should be wary of the bigger picture and understand that these things are passing trends and this won't last forever. So if you do want to promote something using words, and if words have an impact on somebody reading it, then it should be a lot more like wholesome. Like you should let your reader form an opinion after you write something. So let your reader form an opinion if they prefer local stuff or if they actually prefer importing things internationally. You should give a broad view.
Talking about trends, like can you like name some of the current trends which are going in the market in terms of content writing?
Depends on journal to journal, and it depends on like if you're writing for a magazine, if you're writing for a portal, you're writing for a client's website. So there's no like set trend like that.
Did you ever, like in your freelance career, you might have faced problem like client won't like your content? Then how do you take that negative feedback?
I've
Like
not
after
freelanced as a writer till now, so I wouldn't know. I worked in a firm, so
Okay, being an architect or a designer, so once you have completed your design and in the end the client says no, I don't like it, then how do you take it? Like,
you ask them what they didn't like.
so what do you need to do to articulate a content?
When you're writing a piece, if it's for a blog or if it's a newsletter or if it's social media, you have different sort of thought processes that go behind it. It can be the same piece of content, but you'll think about it differently in different ways. For a blog, you'll make it more educational and more SEO friendly. So it shows up more when you Google search some common phrase. When it comes to a newsletter, you want it to be, newsletters usually can be educational and promotional both. So when you have a promotional newsletter, you can talk more shamelessly about your particular thing that you might be branding. And if it's social media, then the way you articulate, the way you structure content is based again on social media platform. Who wants to read what? So if you're writing for Instagram, I'm just going to say the name of the thing. If you're writing for Instagram, then you might want to keep it more friendly and keep it more easy to read. If you're writing for LinkedIn, it's different. Like your language style, the content can be the same, but your tonality changes for everything. And for every piece of, there's short form and long form text. Short form is just a simple caption or something that you can consume faster. Maybe a newsletter that goes out every month. All that is chota chota. When you have long form, it's a research paper or a blog or a newsletter which goes out infrequently. And that's when you have to structure your text like you have an introduction of what you're talking about. Your body talks about the actual essence of what it is that you're trying to say, and your conclusion gives your reader an opinion. Like, this is what it is, now you think what you want to think about it. So ideally, this is how it's structured.
Can you name some of your inspiration or favorite content writers?
I like writers who make it easy to understand text and who make sentences very, I think, easy to understand for everyone, not just for architects. So Alexandra Lang is a good example for anybody who's like looking to get into content writing, because the kind of text is very raw and real, and it's not pretentious. So that's, I think I'm drawn to text that I would like to write like. So that's probably why.
So do you have any advice for the upcoming generation who are trying to
Switch to content writing. Probably
not
just,
switched, who are just directly trying to pursue content writing or mass communication?
I would say journaling is a very good practice to do, even for non-writers. Just to, you have so many running thoughts in your mind that sometimes it's difficult to make sense of it. You don't even know if what you're thinking makes sense. So when you put it on paper, even as bullet points, you learn to streamline your thought process. And that makes a lot of things in life clearer. And if you enjoy that process a lot, then maybe you could consider that as a profession, writing of any sort. So what my advice would be for people who are looking to get into writing is first start journaling, start writing a blog about anything. It doesn't have to be about the profession you're looking to get into. Because when you write a blog, and read a lot of blogs, more than writing, read, keep reading. Because the more you read, the more you realize people have a certain writing style. And the more you realize what goes into writing. So one is you don't have to be the best at writing. You have to be good at explaining what you're feeling. You have to be good at understanding, empathetic, comprehensive, in absorbing more, maybe giving out lesser, and giving out efficiently. So how you can say the same thing in one paragraph or one sentence, make it crisp and short, and that will be more impactful. And keep your language very simple. That's one advice I would give everybody. You don't have to use complicated words. In fact, it does more harm than it does good. So keeping it short and simple and sweet usually does the trick.
Yeah, I think it's a long creative process which take time to develop. But I think with that comes rewards also. So how much do you guys get paid?
Yeah. I'm not telling you that.
But in general, not specific, like I'm not asking your salary, but what is the, like someone can expect when he's just started in the market?
You can actually charge by word. So what writers do is, you either charge like a lump sum. Again, this depends on writer to writer, honestly. You can charge a lump sum that you'll be delivering so many deliverables for a month, where you're doing a blog, a newsletter, and maybe 3 captions, if that's something. Or you can charge per word. So if you're writing a 600 word article, you charge 600 into what you think your word price is based on your experience in the industry.
So for a fresher like me, how much would you recommend to charge?
To get into content writing?
I might, if I get good reward in this. I'm not getting anything in architecture.
Try content writing.
How much should I charge them? I should know.
You need to know what you're going to give them first before you...
Do you think empathy plays a major factor in deciding what to write and what not to?
Yeah. Empathy, understanding, being a good listener helps, all of this helps you in being a good writer. Because the more you absorb, the more you can understand it and the more you can put it in better words. That's all a writer does, is they take raw content and they make it understandable for everyone to understand. Empathy makes a big difference in your understanding of something.
Do you feel any differences, like previously when you were only a design architect and now you, as a content architect, any personality traits or something else you feel feel there's a change in you in way of speaking or working and thought process?
For sure. I think earlier I wasn't as conscious about what I was reading. I would just read it and say, okay, I understood, it's good. But now I'm conscious that if I understood something, that means it's a well-written text. What can I learn from this? And the more I read, the more I try to get into why they wrote what they wrote. Why the sentence formation is like this. Why they chose to put this word. Why they left a sentence abruptly ended. Everything is supposed to, everything has an intent. And I try to understand the writer's intent behind that. So if there's something that I liked, or maybe an unconventional way of writing, maybe they put a quote somewhere that ties in with what they're concluding their article with. I like that. So I try picking up things like this from here and there.
So can you name some of your favorite writers or firms or inspiration?
Writers, there is an architectural writer and critic called Alexandra Lang. And the general language is about how to see a city, how you view a city. And for the most part, the reason I like that kind of writing is because it's very, it's not pretentious, it's very real and raw. And most architectural texts that I've read earlier makes you feel like you're stupid, that you can't understand it. But I like this text because it makes you feel like it's easy to comprehend something like that.
So what are your future goals?
My future goal is to... Yeah, it's a goal. No, but as a writer, I think I would like to definitely get more into editorial writing. So that's writing more for design magazines and doing more interview series. So, you know, interviewing a principal architect or, oh yeah, interviewing you. Yeah, let's say that. And writing an entire article on
Me.
on you. On how you work, or whatever you do, whatever. So yeah, I'd like to do that eventually. More editorial writing work.
What are your 5 years plans?
Oh my god, is this a job interview? My plan is to be happy doing whatever I'm doing and have money.
Okay, with this we are going to end our first chapter of Design Unfiltered. Thank you so much, Modi, for being here.
Yeah. Where am I? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Swipe up for something here.
Okay.
Follow me on Instagram. Bye. And Rajat also.
Yeah, Design Unfiltered.
Design Unfiltered. @Design Unfiltered on Instagram. @Purvi Modi on Instagram.
YouTube कौन करेगा भाई ये वीडियो?
Oh my god.
Instagram के लिए नहीं है.
Give me a list.